Hi, my name is Monica Fernandes. Here at Evolution Essentials, I want you to love yourself first. That's why I teach people how to lead a wellness lifestyle with holistic tools such as essential oils and Reiki. So you too can have more love, more health, and more balance in your life. I felt inspired to connect with my loved ones, my friends, and contacts all over the world. They are experts in their field. I wanted to share with you our conversations and how we deal with stress and crisis. So if at any moment in your life you're feeling down, this show is for you.
Well, hello, Kristie Sanders.
Hi, Monica. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here because I get to chat with my best friends, on this, and you're definitely one of them. And I'm just thrilled that you're going to share your perspective with everything that's going on. And so for those people that don't know you, can you just introduce yourself and tell people about yourself?
Sure. Well, we met probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I believe. And I have been, I'm married with 2 adult children. And I have been teaching in a public school system for over 20 years, starting out as a 5th, 6th, and 8th grade teacher to a 6th grade teacher. And then I transitioned into being a coach for teachers. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years, and I love that too. So I have a lot of experience with, what parents and teachers are facing right now. I'm an avid, I like to play the piano, and I like to read, so I like to do those things too. Basically I'm just like everybody else.
So for people that are not aware of what a coach does in school, can you just kind of explain what that means?
Sure. So my role is to support the teachers in creating the best lessons possible and assessing whether students are meeting our goals or not. So my role is to help teachers improve their practice and do that through evidence-based learning.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for that. So, how have things changed during this pandemic for you specifically?
Well, my role is one in which it really is important to be face-to-face and look at body language and be able to really get a sense of what people are feeling. So being on Zoom, it's much more difficult to do that. And it's stressful for everybody, I think, getting on a different platform and having conversations because it doesn't seem as authentic or as natural for us to do. And also because we have jumped from physical school to remote learning, emergency remote learning, to be honest, there's a huge transition of understanding technology as well. So I've been helping teachers with understanding the new technology. I've been learning some of it myself, and supporting them in how a kid's going to learn in the environment without us being there and supporting them and encouraging them and so forth. So it's been a different role for me. I have meetings once a week with every teacher, and I help them plan. I talk about what's working, what other people are doing that might help them, that sort of thing, because it's just such a new place to be for us. And unfortunately, it might be even longer than just the end of this year. It may turn to how school is going to look differently in September.
So what are some of the challenges teachers are facing right now?
I think there's a lot of challenges. First of all, they're teaching from home, but sometimes they're homeschooling as well, their own children. And as well as I do, that balance at home while everybody's at you is a challenge. Kids are much more anxious right now. Their whole life was flip-flopped.
Yes.
And they become a little more needy because everything was unexpected, and it was suddenly, it wasn't an expected thing for them. So they have this somewhat feeling of uncertainty. And so our kids do get needier when they feel uncertain. So they're going to need more of our attention. So teachers are balancing that as well as parents at home that are working. We're all doing it.
That's true.
So that's a huge challenge for teachers. Learning new technology, particularly if some teachers were not using, flipped classrooms and doing videos and so forth in the past, they've been having to learn how to do that. Crash courses on technology. And some teachers don't actually have the technology at home. So that was a challenge as well.
So how do you solve that problem if they don't have the technology at home?
We've been providing Chromebooks for the teachers as well as the kids.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So we had an opportunity. We have Chromebooks in the classroom in our district, so we were able to disseminate those to the kids that needed them, and any teachers that needed them were also had those available to them. But it's still a transition. It's different teaching with a whiteboard and kids and looking at their faces and seeing what they're struggling with and being able to tell from their body language that this might be challenging to, here's an assignment, go forth and try it, and
yes,
see where it goes.
Especially what you mentioned, that they sometimes have their own kids at home and other distractions. Yes. So that puts a huge stressor, an added stressor. So you had said it's already, the uncertainty that kids feel. I mean, the adults are having a hard time with it. I can't imagine what kids are feeling. Right. And now having to learn all of this, try to be present online with teachers and homework and all of the things that they have to do.
And the truth is that we as teachers don't know what our kids are experiencing at home. So there may be an enormous amount of reasons why kids may or may not be doing an assignment. And we can't control that. But we have to support it. We have to call home and say, is there anything you need? Is there anything we can provide for you? But the truth is that, for example, there's a student that posts her homework around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning every night. And the teacher was saying, what should I do about that? I said, well, maybe that's the only time they have the computer, or maybe that's the only time it's quiet in the house. Maybe that's the time when, everybody else is done with their work. We don't know that. We can certainly make a call and say, are you okay? Are you getting enough sleep? It's a stressful event. We need to make sure you're sleeping. They could be sleeping from 3 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. We don't know.
That's true.
So,
yes, I mean, everybody, it's sort of, you have to take that objective perspective of, you really don't have the knowledge at what their life is like. So to have to, to set those expectations a little bit differently, because you don't know what's happening at home. Yeah, that's a good point. So what happens? Have you had any moments where a teacher has called you freaking out?
Yes. They're all worried. They want to make sure their children are safe. And that's our number one priority in our school system, is to make sure that kids' social, emotional needs are met first. They're worried. If they don't hear from a student for a couple weeks, teachers are staying up. They're falling asleep. They can't sleep. They're worried. They're panicking. They're calling every other teacher they can. Have you heard from so-and-so? We need to make sure they're okay. And we have a system in place for that in our school system. But it's, they're like, just because the kids aren't in school doesn't mean they're not our babies, for this year.
Absolutely. Yes, of course.
It's hard to watch that, because I know that the pain that they're feeling, they're just constantly worried. And teachers are working a lot of hours. Most of my teachers are working between 10 and 12 hours a day.
It's a lot.
Yeah, and the reason that is the case is because they're in meetings, they're planning. Every time they get a ding on their phone about a kid that, posted an assignment, they want to go and answer that, so the child feels motivated to continue on. So they're not stopping at 4 or 5 o'clock in the night. If the child posts something at 10, they're going in there and trying to give feedback, and that can be really stressful. So I talk a lot to the teachers about self-care as well, making sure they can find times where it's for them and their family.
Yes.
It's been a huge transition, because it's hard to, it's at home. You don't get to not take it home with you anymore. It's at home. And it crosses all barriers. So people are struggling. But at the same time, we're lifting each other up. We meet every Thursday night for happy hour and just kind of enjoy each other. We try to send uplifting information and talk about good things that are happening in our meetings. It was funny the other day I talked about, I play the piano and I have my piano right near the windows outside the front of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I had the windows up, it was a beautiful day, and I was playing a couple songs, and there were these two kids standing outside my window and listening to them. And both of them were from our school. And
Oh,
so
wow.
I was so excited, I stopped playing and I went out and talked to them. And it was nice to see their faces. And it's just, when you don't get to see them as much,
Yes.
you know, I was so uplifting to see them and say, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're working so hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it was fun. It's fun.
That's so. Do you think? I mean, can you think of an extreme situation where a teacher has reached out to you, if it like an extreme situation, and what did you tell them to sort of calm them down?
Well, I think the most extreme situation is just wanting to do the best you can and feeling like it's not enough. That's the most extreme I've seen, is in the sense of they're frustrated because maybe they're not getting communication back from families, or they're so worried about the child and they're not hearing any response and so forth. But I think it's about just listening and saying, we're doing the best we can, and this is the avenue to take if we're worried about this child. Having protocols in place, which we do. But the biggest thing is that they care so much that they just want to make sure that their kids are safe. And that in itself we have protocols for, and we're really working hard. I think the percentage of kids that we've communicated with has been amazing. I think it's in the 90s.
Wow.
So that is wonderful. And we've had people drive to kids' houses to give them computers. We've had, we distribute breakfasts and lunches. So if we haven't heard from a child and we know they pick up lunch, we stop and the principal will talk to them, or the assistant superintendent will
That's
talk
amazing.
to them and communicate that way. So there's a lot of people trying to communicate and make sure people are safe. But I think part of it is that teachers are stressed too, and
Yes.
just as well as everybody else. And we have to be balanced in our approach, and we have to be able to say, what can I do for myself to make sure that I'm okay through this? Because you can only be as good as you are, right?
That's right. That's right. You have to take care of yourself to be able to give to others, right? Because if you're not nurturing yourself properly, or the best that you can, and just giving, it's a completely it will do something to you, I think, if you don't take care of yourself. It's like the oxygen mask thing. You got to put it first on you, and then you put it on the kids and the teachers and everybody else.
Right. And we're flying the plane as we're building it. We're really practicing skills. We don't know what's the best approach sometimes for learning. Even virtual schools. I was listening to a NPR conversation about a virtual school, and how kids that were already taking classes virtually, the whole thing has been upped and changed, because now them just taking a virtual class, there are 2 other siblings in the house that need the computer. There are 2 family members that need the computer. So that has all changed as well. So even those students that are used to virtual learning are struggling with the balance in the family in that sense as well. But I think we have to take out time for ourselves. We have to make sure that we are, going outside, taking a walk, whether it be a bubble bath or a walk, whatever you need to do, but something that puts you at peace and that gives you a sense of calm, and make sure that you're taking care of yourself is one of those important things. I know for me, I can get lost in just sitting and playing the piano for a couple hours and play songs.
But that's a good escape for you, because you're practicing something you love, and you're also, the vibration of music is uplifting, I think, by definition. It's just that's why music touches us so much, right?
Yeah, yes, and I absolutely agree. And even when I'm listening to music on my phone, I noticed when the days when I haven't heard something upbeat, or if I'm in a crummy mood, I'll just put the music on and just kind of go somewhere and walk. And it's like, oh, much better now, because I've just had some time to just with whatever you're going with.
That's awesome.
So I think there's a lot of that going on. I also think there's a lot of fear going on. People are fearful of what's going to happen next. Just work out. what are things going to look like in June, in October, in September, in October. And I think sometimes, for me anyway, when I start to feel that way, I have to stop looking at all the media sources. I have to give myself a break.
Absolutely.
Because it's easy to perseverate on that the newscasts and all the sources that are not only, some of them are not vetted, but some of the sources that are coming out with information
Yes.
not necessarily accurate. You have to kind of stick to trustworthy sources. You have to kind of control how much you're watching that and thinking about that as well. And
I'd say limit the intake, you know, and it's because it can get overwhelming so quickly if you just get suckered into you know, watching it. And it seems that there's a lot of repetition, so it's almost like that avalanche, you know, of that fear compounds, that uncertainty compounds, that there's a whole set of things that I think are exacerbated because of you know, too much intake of outside things that are not so positive.
absolutely. And, you know, even from my standpoint, when I'm looking at the news about what things are going to look like for schools and colleges and
Yes.
students, I get a little bit anxious, because I'm like, oh my God, what's going to happen? This is going to be a new thing for them. And, you know, kids are much more resilient than adults anyway. But I think that I just have to control what I can and let go of the rest. So my hope is that the people that are above my pay grade are making good decisions for us students, so that students can come in and be safe, and our teachers can come in and be safe, and we have the best opportunity to be able to have a dialogue with our students and be able to see them and keep them healthy. And even though that's something that weighs on me a little bit, I have to say to myself, you know, there are people that are thinking about this and are making plans right now. And I do have the confidence that they will make sure that everyone in that building will be as safe as possible.
So how do you see, I'm not, you know, not specifically if you don't want to, but in general, do you see the system changing after things sort of, you know, slow down a bit? Once you're able to be back in the buildings, do you see that if the system is changing, and if so, how?
Well, I think that we're going to have to look at some safety protocols until there is a vaccine out there, and it's not it's not as lethal as it is now, because we will have a vaccine and so forth. We have to look at, how do we keep kids distanced? How do we keep the population of teachers that are 55 and older from being at further risk? How do we stop large, huge gatherings while still making school engaging? Class sizes are generally, depending on the district, between 20 and 30. That's a lot of kids in one room. It's not 6 feet apart, I'll tell you that much.
You'd need a gigantic room to make that 6 feet apart with that many people.
So the question is, like, is it going to be, you know, are the days going to look different? Are they going to be longer days with half days for one group and half days for the other? Or are they going to come different days? And there's just a whole bunch of questions that are up in the air right now. I think the most we can say is that my hope is that everyone does the best they can and makes the decision they can at the time. And as we get more information, we look at science, not just our guessing, but we look at science, and we look at what's out there as far as information, and we try to make the best decisions possible. I worry about parents that are struggling right now. It really worries me that, going without getting paid for 5, 6, 7 weeks, and then even thinking longer if certain people the kids are at home. What are the parents going to do? They can't just go to work and leave the 6-year-old at home.
Right.
So how is that going to work, and how are we going to help families be supported through this time? I do think that schools are going to have to look at the social emotional need of how these kids have been in some ways traumatized. And what are we going to do to make sure they feel safe and they feel that the ground isn't going to fall beneath them again?
I do, that's why I started these series, because this pressing thought when this whole thing started of people's mental state. I mean, of all ages, because not just during, but the aftermath. And it's such an unknown, like you said. There's this uncertainty is so daunting, and the experience of if the parents have lost their jobs, or they can't go back to work, or how are you going to survive? And I worry about all that as well. And so in terms of sanity, how do you keep sane? I mean, you've talked about some things, but what are some other things that you have done or do if you feel a little bit down?
The first thing I do when I'm down is I go to music, because music just makes me happy. But the second thing I do is I try to make sure that I have a plan in place so that I'm saying no when I need to say no, and I'm letting some things go, and I'm trying to do things that make me feel comfortable. Like I'm one of those people that I don't like a mess in my house. So like clutter stresses me out. So the house, it's clean. It's I don't avoid doing the cleaning. I don't procrastinate, and that helps me too. I think sometimes when we're stressed, we procrastinate, and that makes us even more stressed and adds to more anxiety. So I think another big thing besides music is not procrastinating, avoiding that at all costs, so that I can feel like there's accomplishments, and they can be little. There's got to be some. So I have a to-do list in the morning of what I want to do. I prioritize it. I have realistic deadlines. I don't make it so that I'm going to be up till like trying to figure something out. So that is a big thing too, avoiding procrastination, because it just makes you feel guilty, like you didn't do this and you're supposed to do this, and
it eats away at you, I think.
Yeah, so I think that's important. I also think it's important to help people. I get a lot of calls from friends that are trying to homeschool, and parents are very stressed about this. They're really struggling with, they'll say, I don't know the new math, or I'm struggling with, having my child sit down for this amount of time. And I say to them that all we expect them to do is the best they can. And if their kid needs a break that day, go sit and cuddle and read a book. It's not going to be the end of the world, as long as we're continuing to practice reading and talking about what we're reading and practicing basic math facts. That's all we need. And if there's a day where you need to leave your pajamas on and just do Disney flicks for the day, that's okay. I mean,
what's got to be.
Yourself and your family. And we get complaints that we're not giving enough work, but then we also get complaints that we're giving too much work.
Well, you can't make everybody happy. It never works that way.
So I keep saying to parents, just do what you can, and you gotta let the rest go. If you're doing the best you can, and that's all we can ask. Because we don't know the circumstances.
Yeah. Do you feel that there's more communication with parents these days than there was before because of all of this?
I think there's more communication with parents as far as the assignments of what's going on and checking in at home. But I feel like it's much more challenging to communicate with the kids that are not participating.
I see.
And that is, I think, the stressor that's probably the biggest for the teachers, is that not being able to communicate with that one child that is participating. And many other, and there could be various reasons for that. We just don't know it sometimes. But it's definitely, communication is really our key focus. We're trying to keep the kids engaged. We're trying to keep the kids talking to one another. We do Google Meets, and similar to Zoom, with the kids, where we'll play things about what we've learned that week, and just to kind of get the kids together, and they get to say hi, and sometimes they dress up for it. It's fun.
Oh, that's great.
We'll make a theme out of it, like everybody wear funny socks and show your socks, and have to get fun. But it's going to be something it's something new for all of us, right? We're all trying this out and seeing what's working for kids. And it's funny, we talk a lot about simplicity. It can be in a sense where kids are thinking deeply, but it doesn't have to look like this huge, long, lengthy piece of work for kids to be thinking deeply. We can
Mhm.
ask them to do something that's succinct, that will be cover the standards that we're supposed to cover in a way that's deeply done.
Mhm.
So, I've done a lot with PD with teachers about what does an assignment could an assignment look like that
Mhm.
doesn't seem overwhelming, but that is going to get our kids to think and relook at articles and revisit
Mhm.
information. So it's been
Mhm.
a challenge in that sense, but a good one.
Mhm.
We've gotten some more PD out of this because we're meeting once a week, which is nice.
Mhm. I find that, because, around the world, different countries are going through different phases. I would be curious, maybe, I don't know if the information would be available to see, for countries that are more advanced, meaning, maybe this whole thing is, settled down or been eradicated. I think New Zealand, I was reading something about New Zealand or Australia, and that I would be curious to see what they would be, implementing if what the new guidelines are at school, how that's working, because maybe sometimes I feel like we could learn from it in some aspects.
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to take a look at what other countries are doing and what's working well for them, and
Mhm.
absolutely look at taking advantage of what's working well for them and putting
Mhm.
that into our protocols.
Mhm.
We don't have to just make this up. We can all support one another worldwide and share
Mhm.
in the ideas. And that's one thing I do love about the internet and Zoom and so forth, is we can talk to people throughout the world and
Yes.
we can communicate good ideas and implement them well because of that.
Mhm.
We are, we can't act and that you get to go away. We have to be about serving our population in the best way possible. That means information gathering first from all avenues.
Mhm. No,
Um,
I agree.
so I
That's.
really think we should do that.
Mhm.
What are ways that they're keeping their kids safe? How are they
Mhm.
keeping their buildings healthy? How are
Mhm.
how are they keeping some distance amongst students? Because I have to say, I'm not sure I could keep a 5-year-old from hugging another 5-year-old.
That's
Like
true. That's
they
true.
love to love each other, and
Mhm.
or even just hitting them over the head with a spoon. Like sometimes. But little
No,
kids, can,
yeah, it would be interesting to see what's working, what hasn't worked, so you don't repeat that. But yes, it's all very interesting, because I feel it's also an opportunity to, um, this adaptation is trials and errors, and so if others have gone through it and have found a way that's working, we should definitely learn from that. Kristie, so to wrap up, can you just give us your 5 tips on how to deal with stress and
well,
crisis,
one of
please?
them that I didn't mention is I spend a lot of my time either in the morning or at night talking about positive things and grateful things that I'm grateful for. I tend to journal those things so that I can
Mm-hmm.
remember them. And if I need to start the morning that way, I start the morning that way, but I always end the night that way.
Wonderful.
The other thing I do is I definitely learn to say no when it's needed. If I'm
Yes.
taking on too much and I'm starting to feel like I'm overwhelmed, I
Mm-hmm.
try to say no to certain things. Sometimes that means my poor husband doesn't get dinner, but too bad, so sad, he can cook. And I definitely try to be creative in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it be gardening, whether it be planting, whether it be music, whether it be art. I actually did a paint by numbers the other day. It didn't come out so good, but it was fun doing. And then I think the last thing is that I do avoid procrastination. I try to make sure that I'm not putting pressure on myself for not doing something. So I prioritize, I give myself realistic expectations and deadlines so that I can manage what I need to do as best as I really can. I think those are some things. And I hope
You mentioned the lists, right?
keeping lists, yep. My hope is that, through that parents, do that too. They get realistic expectations for themselves and their kids. A kid is not supposed to be sitting in front of the computer for 4 hours doing schoolwork. And, an hour here, an hour there are fine, but we need to be kids too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your advice and for your knowledge and expertise. And we'll link up information in the description if people want to have questions for you. And maybe teachers and somewhere on the other side of the globe will have a question for you. And thank you very much, Kristie.
And I'd just like to say thank you too. And thank you to all those people out there that are working hard to keep us all safe and taking care of us, and as well as the teachers, the parents, the kids that are working out there as well. We're proud of them, and we're proud of the things that the teachers are doing to try to make this challenging time as easy as possible for our kids. So thank you.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Amen. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. See you next time.